used to stop at Chevron around 6 a.m. every morning when I got off to get my son a snack for school. And there was this homeless woman that always stood outside the gas station. She never bothered anybody nor asked for anything, but I would always get her a juice, water, and snack just to be nice. One morning, as I handed her the items I bought, she told me, "When the light turns green, wait before going." I didn't know what she was talking about. I just said, "Yes, ma'am," and went on about my day. Well, I got to the red light across from the store, and it turned green, and I seen her looking at me, so I froze, but the car next to me went, and an 18-wheeler ran a red light, and it was a 4-person fatality. After my shift the following morning, she wasn't at the store, so I asked the clerk, has he seen her, and I started describing her, and he said she died a few years ago from a car wreck at that same intersection. I, 25F, live in Seattle, and yesterday I stopped at a gas station in the late afternoon. This station had 2 sets of pumps, one by the storefront on the main road and another parallel to the cross street, a bit further away. I parked at the pump in front of the store, and there were no other cars or people around, except for a van parked at the other set of pumps. As soon as I parked, I saw a woman walking from the van and towards the store. It was a rainy, gloomy day, and she was in a floral dress that looked very cutesy, Christian cottage woman. Hopefully that paints the picture, lol. She looked slightly confused and was subtly looking in the window of my car before she approached me after I opened my door. She was seemingly distressed and told me that she had no gas, was stranded, and had to drive 30 miles to get home. I had an unsettling feeling about the interaction and told her that I was broke and didn't have 30 miles of gas money to help her. She then said that she didn't want money, but needed me to come over to the car to help her. She kept repeating that I just needed to come to the car. I looked towards the van and had noticed the rear window completely covered with black tape, and the car looked noticeably disheveled. I knew at that point I would be going nowhere near her car or getting out of mine at all. After refusing her multiple times, she walks back to the van. It was one of those with the sliding rear doors, and when she returned, she slid it open slightly, and I could see that she spoke to someone in the back seat. At this point, a Mercedes pulls up at the pump right across from her, and a man gets out. She does not approach him at all and drives off. I know this isn't the craziest encounter. In the moment, it felt off, but it wasn't until a few minutes after that the details sunk in, and I realized what it could have been. Maybe I'm being dramatic, and perhaps it was nothing at all, but I do have good intuition, and something didn't feel right from the start. I stupidly made the decision to go get gas at 11 p.m. one night because I didn't make time before work to go. So as I'm pulling up to the gas station, there were a couple of cars at the pumps, which I sort of felt relieved about and more safe going in. Was I wrong? So I go inside to pay the clerk since I'm using cash, and as I'm going to the pump to put gas in, most of the cars are leaving except this one truck parked 2 pumps beside me. I get in the car to wait for my gas to be filled, and I'm on my phone, and all of a sudden I see this guy walking around the front of my car very suspiciously. I sort of glance up to see what he was doing, but at that point I had made eye contact with him. Shit. He then proceeds to ask if I have any change for gas, and I nod. No, sorry. He says, okay, that's cool. Hey, do you want me to remove your gas pump for you? Say no, I'm good. Thanks. At this point, my gas is filled up, and he knows. And he's kind of fidgety as well, and walks away behind my car. I'm trying not to glance back and be subtle about looking where he is because I don't want to alarm him with how terrified I am. In my head, I'm thinking, how can I leave my car with him still around my car? He's out of sight. At this point, no one is in the lot, and I'm waiting till another car pulls up. 5 minutes later, nothing. So my flight or fight response is really kicking my ass on what else should do next. It's really cold out. I haven't turned on my car because the pump is still in my car. I don't know where this man is at. Then finally, I see him walk towards his truck, but not entering it, just around it. But as soon as his back is toward me, I go for it. And I take the pump out, and he notices and quickly approaches me and says, "Oh hey, you're really beautiful." Still walking toward me, I nod and quickly but subtly put my gas cap back on. And he says, "I don't look like a serial killer, do I?" With this crazed look in his eyes. Like, yeah, MF, actually you do. But at this point, I bolted in my car and drove off quickly. So ladies, please avoid the gas stations at night or carry some sort of protection, because I sure as hell will from now on, and I learned my lesson. It wasn't as bad as it sounds, but it definitely could have taken a different turn of events had I done things differently. For a bit of context, I work at a gas station in the backwoods of Tennessee, and that's where this happened. Last night, when I clocked in at 8, the store was completely dead. I figured it was going to be a pretty easy night because the road this station is on is not the main road. Actually, it used to be up until about a decade ago when a new freeway was built. This led basically every business that was here to pack up and leave their old building abandoned. Thanks to this, there are a lot of abandoned buildings on this stretch of road that local druggies tend to claim as their own. Anyways, at around 11, I only had an hour left of my shift, and so I figured I should actually get some work done instead of just sitting around and doing nothing. I'm 18, and so I work the shift alone, which is nice because it means I can do pretty much whatever I want. This is normally pretty great because I can do whatever I want so long as I get what I need to get done finished. I noticed we were almost out of barbecue chips, and so I'd need to go get them from our storage space, which is for some reason in the basement of the station. I've always hated going down there just because it gives me the creeps. Why the owner decided to store everything down there is beyond my comprehension. I got about halfway down the steps before something fell on the other side of the room, and it sounded like footsteps were coming my way. I sprinted up the stairs and locked the door to the basement, panicking like a madman the entire time. When I got back upstairs, I went behind the counter to the store computer so I could check the security cameras. I flicked over to the one that looks into the basement, and there was this guy just standing there, smiling up into the camera. He had a look of absolute insanity in his eyes, but he didn't look like the average junkie in the area. He was clean-shaven and dressed in what looked to be jeans and a button-up of some kind. Honestly, if he'd walked into the store, I wouldn't have batted an eye. But because he was down there and became me common, he was just looking into the camera, smiling. It shook me to my core. I called the store owner, and at first he was pretty mad. I called him in the middle of the night, but once he heard how freaked out I was, his tone changed. He told me he'd be there in 15 minutes and just to lock the main door to the store and make sure the man didn't go anywhere. I asked if I should call the police, but for some reason, he didn't want me to do that just yet. I locked the entrance to the gas station and went back to looking at the man. He was still there, just smiling up at me. About 3 or so minutes of him staring at me later, and he walked out of view of the camera. My boss showed up soon after armed with a shotgun, and when I let him in, he immediately went to the basement. I went with him just because I felt safe with there being another person there, and all, but we found nothing. My boss ultimately chalked this up to me being tired and hallucinating the man, but I know what I saw. This has me scared shitless as I clock back into work in a few hours, and I'm really dreading it. Went to the gas station down by my house. I go there daily. It was myself and my partner. We drove over with our 2 doggies, small wiener dogs. One is 5 years, always alert, a barker. Other is 11 weeks. Super friendly. Once we got there, we parked at the pumps. My boyfriend asked what I wanted and went inside. After a couple minutes, a man walked out from the station and went to his gold-colored Malibu parked at the next pump beside me. I was holding my phone, pretending to not be looking. I do this often. I don't like people. And my older dog was in the driver window waiting. She was nit barking or growling. This guy approaches the window but still at a distance says, "She is so cute." "Can I pet her?" I replied with, "I don't know. She doesn't usually like people, but you can try." He reached towards her. Window was half down. My older dog jumped into the back seat and began barking, normal behavior. He then leans into the car halfway and takes her out of my hands. I was trying to keep a grip but didn't want to hurt my dog, so I let go as my boyfriend was finishing up in the gas station. Kind of busy, but can see him through the window. My puppy begins to screech as soon as he touches her, and my hands leave her. She is screaming like she is in pain. I had adjusted myself, and he awkwardly shoves her back to me as I'm trying to snatch her back, and my boyfriend is coming out. He asks who the guy was. I said, "I don't know." The guy then got into his car and drove away. We also drove away and went home. I told my boyfriend he wanted to pet the other dog, but grabbed the puppy, but shoved her back real quick. I have no clue who he was, Swizz. He said he was rude to the workers and was happy I was okay. A very quick, scary interaction. Just got back from work, late at night, and I stopped at the gas station on the way. For context, I'm a guy in my 30s. As I pulled into the gas station, I noticed an old beater sedan with its lights off parked in the side of the building. As I pulled past the car to park, I saw someone was in there. So as I parked, I look over and the other car starts moving with the lights off and parks 2 spaces down from me. I keep looking because this is late at night and weird behavior. I see this guy, mid-50s white guy in a baseball hat, turn the interior light on and just stare me down. Not moving, just staring. I'm like, whatever, and go get my stuff inside. The guy never gets out or goes inside. As I'm leaving the store, I can see he hasn't moved an inch, just following me with his eyes as I walk back to my car. At this point, I'm holding the knife I carry in my pocket, ready for this guy to try something. I make it to my car and climb in. And after I start the car, I look over again, and he's still completely unmoving, just staring straight at me with his interior light on. We're the only 2 cars there. At this point, I'm thinking he's either an unmarked cop or a fucking serial killer. So I slowly pull out and watch him stare at me the whole time I drive out of the gas station. He never pulled out or followed. This was my ex-girlfriend's experience while we were together, and I mainly want to tell it so people, mainly women, can be cautious. My ex and I moved to a new area closer to our workplaces, which happened to be in a very bad neighborhood. We were young and just really needed a cheap apartment. We did not know how truly dangerous the neighborhood was. She had an early morning meeting for work and needed to fill her car up with gas. When we first moved to the neighborhood, I noticed a few blocks away there was a gas station that looked extremely sketchy. I even made a point to say, we probably should get gas somewhere else, even though it's the closest to our apartment. When she pulled in, she was the only car there, and she begins pumping her gas. While she's filling up, she sees 2 men walk out of the gas station mini-mart, and when they see her, they both immediately turn around and go back in the mart. She thought that was strange and continued pumping. A few moments go by, and the men come back out and walk straight to her. They start chatting with her, asking where she is going and if she wants to go to a party. She reminds them it's 6 a.m., and they just laugh and continue to try and persuade her. The position they decided to stand really made her uncomfortable. They positioned themselves in a way where they had either side of her, and she felt like she wouldn't have been able to jump in her car if she needed to get away quickly. All of a sudden, another car pulls in to get gas, and the 2 men just sprint away, as if they had already committed a crime. I still wonder what would have happened if that car never pulled in. Back in fall of 2021, my now husband and I were moving from Iowa to Maryland. We were driving late into the evening to get to our halfway point in Ohio before stopping for the night. The countryside from Iowa to Ohio is barren. I believe we were in Indiana at the time. Fields for miles and miles. We were driving late And sometime after dark, we go through a thick patch of fog, and there's this horrible blood splatter on the road where it looks like someone hit an animal on the highway. Not a small amount of blood, but a lot. Must have been a deer, and it looked fresh, but there was no carcass on the road or the side of the road and no viscera, just blood. This is not the main part of this story, but it made us feel weird at the time. A little while later, we needed to stop to get gas and use the bathrooms, so we drove till we found a gas station literally in the middle of nowhere. I think it was called something like Woody's, and there was a diner attached to the gas station. We pull into the parking lot, and it is dark and pretty much empty. Only one truck in the parking lot. We get some gas and then park and walk up together to the station to use the bathrooms. The entryway of the gas station is filled with gambling machines, and every one of them is being used by someone, even a couple preteen kids, which I thought was strange. There's also a few guys chatting to the cashier. When we walk in, the weird vibe from earlier on the road gets weirder. Everyone stares at us as we walk in. Neither of us feel comfortable as we walk towards bathrooms. At the end of the hallway that has the bathrooms, there is a glass door that looks in on the most unexpected thing. It's a dead end behind the door with a very dusty curtain in front of which has been posed a scene with mannequins that look absolutely ancient. The mannequins are displayed as a 50s family eating at a diner table, being served by a waiter. A mom, dad, 2 kids, and a waiter bent over them with a tray and a wide grin. I don't know entirely why, but this makes us feel incredibly unsettled. We stare for a second, noticing the dust and the flies on the table. The mannequins are ancient and peeling, looking like they might really be from the 50s. Clearly, this is blocking the connecting door to the diner. I can't describe how off the vibes felt. We look at each other and use the bathrooms as fast as humanly possible. When we come out and go back into the main gas station area, it is empty. Everyone who was using the machines is gone. The guys and the cashier are gone. We weren't in the bathrooms more than just a couple minutes. We speed walk out and get back in our car. Something was really off about that place and just the night in general. What cars did all those people come in, and where did they go? What the heck was with those disgusting mannequins? Why did we feel so strange when nothing was obviously a threat? We drove the rest of the way to Ohio, feeling like we had almost gotten into something we shouldn't have. I suppose none of these events in particular are what people might say are scary, but they stuck in our minds, and remembering that place gives me the jeebies. I was there for 3 years. The station had an auto shop attached, but was rarely needed at night, so I typically just dealt with people coming for gas. Occasionally, I'd be asked to work on a car overnight from the day shift. One time, I found several bags of heroin leaking out from the driver's seat. I was nervous the owners would know I saw it, so I stuffed the bags back in. The station was out on a country road, so the types of customers I generally served were truckers or farmers or a random couple driving home from a date. However, there were the anomalies, the car accidents, the drunk driver that killed a small family in the intersection out front. There was a vicious, blazing inferno coming out of that minivan. The dad made it out, but he was on fire and died in the middle of the road. One time I served gas to someone who was being chased by the police. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. I just thought the driver was in a hurry. I was robbed at gunpoint twice. It was the same 2 ski-masked guys too. They just took turns speaking between the 2 incidents. Then there was the time an old guy drove up, got out of his car, and died of a heart attack 2 steps later. Those incidents were normal, or at least understandable, explainable. But there was one night, something unexplainable happened. It was shortly after 3 a.m. Headlights drove in carrying a 1966 Pontiac Bonneville 2-door coupe. A thin trail of smoke was coming from under the hood. The inside of the windows were all fogged up, so I couldn't really see the interior of the car or the occupants. The car drove past the gas station and right into the auto shop. The lights weren't even on inside the shop, but the headlights lit it up. I went to greet the driver and flipped on the overhead lights of the shop. But they came on weak and dim. The driver's side door opened as I approached, and I was immediately hit with a stench of old, damp cloth and dust. A middle-aged man got out uneasily, like his knees were made of twigs. He wore one of those black Quaker hats with dark hair spiking from under it and a graying goatee. The man's face was covered in lines and wrinkles, and his eyes sunk back into his head. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Check the oil. Check the engine," he choked out and walked past me, fumbling out an old box of matches. The passenger door closed, and a middle-aged woman stood there. She had thick, dark hair that looked like it was greased through with gel and matted to her head. An uneven set of bangs cut across her forehead. The woman carried the same sunken-in eyes as the man, but her face was covered in days-old makeup, rosy cheeks, blue eyeliner, red lipstick. Even through the smearing, you could tell it was applied with heavy exaggeration. Then the woman smiled at me. I wish she hadn't. Her teeth were dirty orange and speckled with black dots. Her gums were dark gray. I noticed she only had the front 6 teeth on her upper and lower jaws. She didn't appear to have any molars, which I shouldn't know, but she couldn't stop smiling to reveal that. The moment the woman saw me, her lips had stretched into a wide-mouthed grin that curved downward like a catfish. It was a strange and frightening smile, like it was pulled and stretched over a screaming face. The woman began speaking to me, but she spoke so softly I couldn't hear her. I kept leaning forward, trying to get a better ear, but the closer I got, the further her voice sounded. Then I realized we were inches from each other's faces. Her breath was rancid as she spoke, and I finally heard what she was saying. "Don't go in the car." The woman pulled back, and I saw the scream behind the smile in her eyes. She was terrified. Joan, the driver, was already outside the auto shop, lighting up a dirty-looking home-rolled cigarette. The woman, Joan, followed him. She looked back, continuing to smile, but her eyes told a story of desperation and horror. They gave me chills, and I was happy the two were going to wait outside. I watched the strange couple walk down to the edge of the gas station, where it made up the corner of a quiet country intersection. I turned to the car, not really sure what to do. After I couldn't get under the hood, I figured there was a release latch under the steering wheel. I went to the driver's side door and saw the window was down. I leaned in through the window and searched and fumbled until I found the latch. I flicked it open and saw the hood pop up. As I was pulling myself out, a thought struck me. The window was up when the man drove in. It was up when he walked off. How did it get down? Then my eyes caught the rearview mirror. And what was in the back seat? There was a little boy staring at me. He sat calmly in the middle seat with his seatbelt still on. He had a strange, swelling facial scar that reminded me of a boy I went to grade school with named Johnny Watkins. He'd been attacked by a dog when he was little, and large portions of his face were horrendously scarred. That's what this boy looked like, and he had something that looked like mud and dirt smeared around his mouth and chin. The same smears were on his hands and wrists. The boy wore old, dirty overalls and a flannel shirt underneath. His eyes were locked on me. They carried an accusatory glare, like he was catching me stealing. I quickly blurted out, "Hey buddy, just checking out the engine, then we'll get you and your parents on their way." The boy stared back, his brow furrowed down at the center, angrily. "They're not my parents," he croaked out. Then he started to make a strange sound. I couldn't tell what it was at first, but then it became clear. The boy was laughing in his own odd way. It was like his breath was hitching up repeatedly during the inhale. I didn't know what to do or say, so I pulled myself out of the window and made my way to the hood. I looked out and saw Joan and the man were still at the corner, smoking and arguing. I popped the hood up and was greeted with a cloud of smoke. I figured it was a motor oil spill or leak at first. Then I stared down at the engine and I had no idea what to make of it. It looked foreign, but also homemade. It was all connected and had metal plates fastened around it, protecting parts of the wiring and cables, so it was next to impossible to see what was wrong. I honestly didn't know what the hell I was looking at, but I managed to find what looked like a small handle for a dipstick, and I twisted and pulled it out. It was for the oil. I cleaned it, put it back in, and pulled it to inspect. Basically dry. The little oil at the end felt gritty. It needed a change. The car was parked over our lift, so I didn't have to get in to move it. But I couldn't leave the kid in there. He had to get out. Safety precautions and all. I went to the driver's side window, but the window was up again. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. I went over to the passenger side and found it locked too. I peered in through the dirty windows to try to signal to the boy to open the door. but the back seat was empty. The car was empty. He was gone. The only explanation I could come up with was that the back seats of the car pulled down and allowed access to the trunk. So I checked the trunk, but it was also locked. I knocked on it, trying to get the boy's attention if he was inside, but nothing came back. I looked outside, but couldn't see Joan or the man. I was confused and nervous, and all I could think to do was explain that our lift wasn't working, so they'd need to get their oil changed at another shop in the next few days. Then I'd send them on their way. A loud clunk made me jump. On the other side of the garage, a loose wrench was on the ground. I walked over to it and picked it up. It had a small, child-sized, muddy handprint on it. And suddenly, that odd laugh echoed out from somewhere in the garage. I raised the wrench to swing, but there was nothing to swing at. The loud metal rattling of the front, retracting door slamming shut made me yell. I went over to inspect the now shut door, but as I did, the retracting metal doors at the back slammed shut as well. At this point, I figured the kid was messing with me, so I called out to him, telling him playtime was over and to come on out. Then the power went out. The garage was completely black. Not a single window could be seen. I tried to open the front metal gate, but it wouldn't budge, like it was welded shut. More metal tools clanged against the ground. One slammed against the metal door, right beside my head. And another. The boy's hitched laughter croaked out from somewhere in the dark of the shop. I couldn't see anything, but knew the layout of the garage inside out and backwards. There was a flashlight on the far end of the wall to my right. There were shelves along the wall and a wide workbench I could follow. I moved along the metal door to the wall and found the edge of the bench. The boy's laughter got louder, echoing through the garage. It stopped sounding human, though. It was more hyena-like, and the source of the laughter was getting closer to me. With it, I felt a hot, rotten breath assaulting my nostrils. It followed me along the bench and towards the end of the wall. Through laughing, the boy quietly repeated, "I'm gonna find ya. I'm gonna find ya." My foot hit what felt like a ratchet wrench, which loudly skittered across the metal grating on the floor. "Was that you?" the boy squealed out. Realizing I still had the wrench in my hands I first picked up, I threw it across the garage, hoping to hit the back wall and cause a distraction. It left my hand, but it never landed. "There you are," the voice called out through laughs. Something shuffled behind me. I hit the end of the bench and reached up, knocking over multiple tools and causing a series of loud crashes. But I didn't care. I felt the flashlight grip and turned it on, spinning and pointing the light behind me. I wished I hadn't. The boy was 2 feet from me. I only saw his face for a moment, but that was enough. The boy's facial scar had unraveled, like layers of extra skin in some strange face scarf covering. Only the fleshy layers were actually attached to him and contained rows of needle-like teeth on the inside. When the skin flap opened, it tripled the original diameter of his mouth. I screamed and fell backward. I expected to hit the ground and immediately have the boy's frightening mouth biting down on my face or neck. I hit the pavement outside the garage instead. The lights of the gas station poured over me. I looked back into the garage from my back. The lights were on. The metal door was open. The Bonneville was still and silent. Windows closed and clear. Footsteps approached from behind me. I scrambled up and turned to see Joan and the man had returned. He flicked his cigarette butt and approached me and mumbled, "How much?" I couldn't speak. My lower jaw moved, but all I could stammer out was, "Don't worry about it." The man shrugged and walked back to the car. I turned and found Joan there, staring up at me. She was whispering something quickly and repeatedly. I leaned in and heard it clearly. "You should have listened. You should have listened. You should have listened." The man called out from the car, snapping Joan back to him. Still smiling, Joan shook her head at me, tears rolling down her cheeks in dark smears. She walked back to the car and got in. The Bonneville started up and drove past me. The windows were no longer blurred by fog, so I could see inside clearly. I saw the man staring straight ahead. Joan, sitting passenger beside him, smiled out at me with worried eyes. Then I saw the back seat. It was empty. The boy was gone. I was so afraid, I locked the garage and the gas station, checked my car, then got in and drove for an hour before stopping. I called my boss and told him I was violently ill and had to lock up early. He was less than impressed, but I didn't care. I couldn't go back there. And I didn't. I gave my 2 weeks and called in sick for each shift. I never went back to the garage and try to avoid gas stations at night now. But it's not just that. Now, whenever I hear someone laugh, I hear the boys laugh. That same odd upward hitch. No matter the person, every giggle or cackle comes out the same. And sometimes it turns into that higher-pitched hyena cackle. It's been happening more and more. It feels like one of those flus that start slow and take their time weakening your immune system before leveling you. Then tonight happened. I came home and there was a small, muddy handprint on the door handle of my apartment. There was one on the inside too. Sometimes the most terrifying things are the ones we can't explain away with logic. We tell ourselves it was a dream or a trick of the light just so we can sleep at night. But deep down, you know the truth. Question for the comments. Have you ever felt something brush against you in the water or seen a shadow move in your house when you were supposedly alone? Tell me your story below. If you want more true accounts of the unexplained, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Sleep well, if you can.